Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. Today we're talking about grid down vehicle stuff. This is sort of a part two. The part one, I guess we could call it, of this video was where I was talking about like e-bikes and Surons and golf carts and alternative forms of transportation, talking about a lot of electrical stuff and recharging and use cases of the non-big vehicle stuff. So in that video, I said I'll probably do a follow-up video where I'm talking about bigger vehicle stuff and just a lot of considerations and whatnot. So this video will be kind of podcast style. I'll probably throw some B-roll in here and there and overlay some other stuff. But for the most part, it's just going to be talking. So feel free to put on your headphones or listen to it like a podcast when you're driving. That's this video. I'll try to put chapters down below like I always do, but I don't even have an outline. I'm just gonna talk. So I like preparedness. You guys should know that by now. I like thinking about it. I like learning about it. I like listening and reading books and manuals, and I have friends that are into it, and I have friends in high places that are into it, and I have information that's shared with me from people that know more than me. And anyway, I bounce a lot of ideas. We do a lot of thinking. I just am into this kind of stuff. I think it's fun. Do I want a grid down scenario to happen? Definitely not. I have a family, I have a life, I enjoy my life, and I don't want anything bad to happen, but I do want to be prepared in case it does happen. I will probably do not a follow-up video, but another video about bugging in versus bugging out, because that's kind of has relevancy to grid down vehicle choices and scenarios, but that's its own topic that I'm just going to do a dedicated video on. And then I've had emails and people that were genuinely curious about my thoughts of kind of the state of the world and whatnot. So I'll probably do a follow-up video where I'm talking about potential grid down scenarios, whether that's AI or infrastructure attack or EMP or warfare or aliens or whatnot. So I'll do another video on all that kind of stuff. Because again, I'm into it all. I nerd out on all of it. But a lot of you guys follow me for vehicles. This is the F450 behind me. I thought it would just make a cool backdrop. So I am going to talk a little bit of specifics in vehicles and kind of how you can set up vehicles and things you can add to the vehicles to make them more grid down ready. But a lot of it is just going to be information and thoughts and just talking about stuff that will get your juices flowing, maybe to think about your own scenarios, because everyone's different. Everyone's scenario is different. Where you live is going to be different than where I live. So taking in those considerations is going to be different. Do you have family? How far do you think you're going to travel? All of these things are going to be different for everyone. So I'll try to touch on as much stuff as I can in this video. So for starters, I like this whole idea of having a prepared daily driver. So not everyone can drive around in an F450 on 40-inch tires. Like I get that. It's not a practical daily driver vehicle. It's not even a practical daily driver vehicle for me. And this is kind of my job. So I understand the limitations of that. And if you really need a good commuter vehicle because you're commuting long distances or whatever, but I think if you follow my channel, you're probably into overlanding or off-roading or preparedness or whatever. And all of those things really lend themselves to building a capable vehicle. So let's talk a little bit about if you're going to have one vehicle, or if you're going to have maybe a commuter and then one like adventure vehicle. Real briefly, some considerations for that vehicle. Now, if you want to dive a little deeper in my thought process on that, the prepared daily driver, I'll put a video link up here if I remember, where I basically, if you just search LLOD prepared daily driver on Google or YouTube, you'll probably come up with several of the videos that I've made about different vehicles of mine that were my prepared daily driver at the time through the years. If you feel like nerding on that, you can. But you're basically building like an overland vehicle or a bug out vehicle. There's a lot of crossover there, but a vehicle that's going to be capable, a vehicle that is going to be able to sustain some body damage? Are you weaving through broken down cars? Are you going up and over medians? Are you just going through people's yards to get where you need to go? And you might need to go through bushes or knock over mailboxes or whatever. Nice big bumper, bull bar type stuff is good for that. Are you going to need to move stuff out of the way potentially? A winch would help with that. Larger off-road tires, you're going to need to go through the dirt, the mud, you're going to need to jump curbs, you're going to need to do a lot of stuff. So basically, if you think of an overland vehicle, it's a very good prepared daily driver vehicle. So again, I dive deeper into that in separate videos, but good tires, some protection, reliability. And this one is, I don't talk about it as much in the Prepared Daily Driver series, but it's more in line with grid down vehicle. Again, if you have, I know that I'm not the norm. There's people out there that have way more vehicles than me, but I know I have more vehicles than most people. So the fact that I have several vehicles for different scenarios and whatnot, I get not everyone has that. But I am going to talk later. I got this thing over here called the bug out bus. I have videos on that too. It's not really for bugging out, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about RV type, camper type stuff and the scenarios and use cases of those even in this video as well. But as far as just the prepared daily driver vehicle, the only thing I would add on to grid down vehicle is the ability to carry gear in case you do need to bug out, or in case you do need to go to your storage unit and pick up a bunch of stuff, in case you do need to pick up a couple extra people and take them wherever. It's good. It's better to have a vehicle that can carry more people or more things, at least. Even if you're a single dude and you don't think you're going to need to carry stuff, that's where maybe like a single cab or regular cab wouldn't be as good, or like a little Suzuki Samurai wouldn't be as good as something like a bigger SUV, like a Sequoia or a F450 or a Tundra. These are all vehicles that would probably be even better for grid down type scenarios. And then the one other thing that you could add, and this is kind of niche, but everyone always talks about it, is EMP proofing a vehicle. So I put these things called EMP shields in all of my vehicles, and I have a lot of vehicles. So that adds up. And if you just have one vehicle, then it's not as expensive, but they are a few $100. I have a discount code. I think it's LLOD or LLOD50, and I'll show it on the screen here. It'll save you $50 off. So I do have a coupon code kind of affiliate with them that'll save you some money. I appreciate you using it. I do get a kickback from that, full disclosure. But even if I didn't, I'd have them on all my vehicles. I have friends that know things that they have them on their vehicles, they have them on their government vehicles, stuff like that. So they're legit. If you're skeptical about them, that's fine. You go on their website, they have testing, call their customer service hotline, whatever. But all that to say, it's a device that you attach to your vehicle that theoretically, hopefully, EMP proofs your vehicle. It's basically a really advanced shunt. So it protects it from lightning strikes or EMPs. And then beyond that, you go back in time and you get some old carbureted thing from the 80s or beyond, and that theoretically is going to be EMP proof as well. So that's something to consider. There's actually a bunch of videos I'm going to be making. I'm going to be making some EDC videos. Again, kind of getting back to the roots of gear and just talking. Going to do some of those videos because it's been a while. I've had a long streak of just random videos, and then every once in a while I'm just like, I feel like getting back to my roots. So over the next couple months, you can look for those types of videos. So real quick, before I get into some other stuff, actually, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, Fabletics. Yeah, so they've sponsored some videos in the past. Yes, if you're wondering, I am wearing a onesie, a hooded onesie with pockets. And yeah, I honestly do like, they didn't pay me a bunch of money to wear it. They sponsored the video, don't get me wrong. But this thing's sweet. So Christmas is coming up, right? So if you have a wife or girlfriend, she has already tried to get you in a onesie. Maybe you already have a onesie. I never had a onesie. In general, they're probably pretty stupid, honestly. But I may take this thing camping. Honestly, this thing is so comfortable and stretchy and pockets and hooded. And kind of goofy, but also kind of amazing. My wife got one. She told me that actually just about an hour ago when I was telling her I was coming out to film this video, she told me they had kid-size onesies as well. So she got a onesie. She got the green one. She should have got the red one. Maybe I'll throw her in here. And there's some kids ones, so you could have like a whole family of matching onesies. Now, Fabletics isn't known for onesies. It's just they do kind of drops basically every month, some seasonal stuff and whatnot. So they got Christmas sweaters. They got all kinds of stuff. Actually, I'll grab some stuff. They got like Christmas sweaters. And actually this I like a lot. This is kind of like a shacket, like a comfortable flannelly type shirt. Jacket, shirt? Is that shacket? I think that's what they're called. Maybe not. Anyway, they're known for athletic wear. They do a lot of golf wear. They kind of do some everyday wear, and the stuff is just so. It's my most comfortable clothing. Like I'm tacticaled out a lot of times. Don't get me wrong, but when it comes to comfort, they know what they're doing over there. So yeah, onesies obviously, but athletic wear is so good. It's moisture wicking, stretchy, super comfortable. I have several of their golf polos. I absolutely love them. So they basically have a VIP program you can sign up for. If there's nothing you want that month, you can actually cancel or kind of pause your membership and you won't get charged. But you get, signing up, you get 70 to 80% off initially. Daily, you get up to 50% off. You get early drops. You get exclusive stuff as well. You don't have to just get stuff for you. You will for sure. Your wife will want stuff from Fabletics. Probably she'll get most of the stuff and maybe you'll get some of the stuff even. So you can kind of share, you can buy some for you can buy some for her. And then you also get access to their fitness app as part of that program as well. So if you're interested in just checking out more or signing up, go to fabletics.com/LLOD and get signed up. They've been a sponsor now for a while and they send me clothes every month and I like a lot of what I get. Again, just wildly comfortable stuff. And 'tis the season to get your onesie on. So I know kind of a random sponsor for this grid down kind of dark video, but wanted to lighten things up a little bit. Check out the onesie. Cool. Thank you, Fabletics, for sponsoring the video. Fabletics.com/LLOD. All right, so prepared daily driver, but then maybe even if you can, a little bigger, especially if you have a family, to carry more things, to carry more gear, to carry more people. Those are good things to consider. Then some things to consider depending on what you're doing, where you're going. Again, I'm going to do a separate video on bug out versus bug in. And then comms. I won't talk about it a ton in this video. I talk about it a little more in the Prepared Daily Driver series, and I have some other videos on it. But comms. Chances are if grid goes down, cell phones probably are going to go down as well. So best would be ham, amateur radio, GMRS, another decent option, or CB radio, another one as well. All of those are still going to work even if the grid goes down. Potentially even repeaters. Some repeaters, depending on what ones they are, have battery backup, depending if it's an EMP or not. They do have EMP shields as well for radios and antennas. But yeah, if it's not an EMP, if it's just a regular grid attack and comms go down as far as cell phones go down, being able to communicate with either kind of your core group of friends or knowing repeaters that might be up is a great option. Or if you have a plan with your family at home, then you could buzz them. Maybe you have your home system set up and then you're on your mobile on your vehicle set up, but you're close enough where you can talk to someone at home. That's good. Communication, super important. But in a grid down scenario, there's some things to think about, especially in an EMP, but in any scenario, you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself, right? The whole gray man theory. So your house, your vehicle, things like that. If there aren't vehicles driving around on the road, you probably don't want to go out yourself and drive on the road because you will draw unwanted attention to yourself. People will realize that you have something that they want. If you have a running vehicle, maybe they won't even try to take your vehicle, but they'll follow you. Or try and find out where you're going or where you came from because they may know you have supplies, and obviously they may want your vehicle. So there's a lot of things to consider if you are going to be driving a vehicle in a grid down scenario, especially after other vehicles have kind of went silent on the road. There's a very important thing. Again, there's going to be some crossover in this video and the dedicated kind of bug out versus bug in video, but as it pertains to grid down vehicles, whether EMP or grid attack or some other scenario, especially if it's ones that happens fast versus like a slow erosion, like a hyperinflation or something like that would kind of slowly deteriorate society. If it's something that is quick, and there are going to be vehicles that either aren't running or due to navigation issues and cell phones being out and traffic lights being out, chances are if it's a grid attack or if it's an EMP, the roads are going to get kind of shut down really fast, which is where the preparedness vehicle comes into play, where you should hopefully be able to go through over curbs and through yards and all that kind of stuff to get where you need to go. So an important aspect is if you're not home, you want a vehicle that can get you home. Prepared daily driver aspect. If you're at work, if you're at an event, if you're just anywhere, if you're out getting groceries or whatever, you want to make sure that vehicle can get you home. That's why it's very important to have an EMP shield. A lot of people are like, oh, EMP shield, what? You're not going to be able to get gas. Yeah, well, in some scenarios you might not be able to get gas, but if you get a deep pump, you could go to a gas station, you can pump from their underground reserves. I have a buddy that actually just got a system built up that he has ready to do that very thing. I should do that as well. But you want to be able to get home. So a grid down vehicle, you want to be able to get home. And then you want to be able to get to where you're trying to go, or you want to be able to get to some supplies you might have somewhere else. You want to be able to get to getting your parents or your kids or whatever and get them to a single location. So there are a ton of scenarios where even in an EMP and a full grid outage, something like that, you will want to very quickly take your vehicle that is still running that can get places and go get things, go get people, or bug out to your bug out location. So having a running vehicle is going to be very important if the grid goes down quickly. So if the grid goes down quickly, there's not going to be people shooting random cars that are driving by on the first day. It's gonna collapse quick. The theory is it's kind of like 2 to 3 days. So in the first 24 hours, you should be able to drive around pretty safely, but you're gonna want to get on that. You want to get on that quick if things go down, because people are going to get crazier and crazier as the days go on. And then fuel. It's always good to have, I preach this more in the winter than in the summer, but all year round, it's good to try to stay above a half tank of gas. I know it's not always convenient, and I know sometimes you want to maximize your fuel points, and I know there's a lot of things. I don't always do it. I drop below. My wife is always dropping below half a tank, but for the most part, I'll try to put stable in my fuel when I can, or a diesel treatment type thing, and I try to keep my vehicles above half a tank. Because again, if it's EMP, grid attack, something like that, gas pumps won't work. You want to be able to have enough in your tank on you right there to go run around and do what you need to do. Maybe you got to drive and pick up your kid at school or whatever it is. You don't want to be on E in that kind of scenario. And then in the winter months, if you're in a place that gets snow, you don't know when you're going to get stranded somewhere on the road. And having more than a half tank of gas to just run your engine to keep you warm is a good thing. I actually did a scenario where I slept in my truck, in my Tundra, at negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit. And I did it in the scenario where I wasn't prepared to do it. I just did it with whatever I would normally have on me, and I needed to start the car a few times to stay warm. So it was good to have gas. So have gas, and then have gas at home as well. So how much gas you're going to store at home, that's up to you, but I'd have at least a couple 5-gallon jugs of fuel, whether that's jerry cans or the plastic ones or whatever. Just make sure they're airtight cans, treat them with stable so they last longer. It was brought to my attention, I hadn't really thought of this, but some HOAs and some insurance companies and stuff like that will really limit or frown upon the storage of too much fuel. So be smart about fuel storage. I keep 12 5-gallon jugs of fuel at all. I mean, I have more than that, other jugs lying around that kind of do this and that, Rotopacks and whatnot, but I have a dedicated shelf of 12 jugs, and I label them 1 through 12. That corresponds to every month. And I try every month, every couple months, every few months to empty those jugs, and then I'll go and refill them, empty those jugs into a vehicle that's low or has half a tank or whatever, and then go refill those and have stable. So at any given time, I have fuel that's stable. It allows it to last two years or more. At any given time, I have, a year plus of fuel. If you can store ethanol free, that's even better. But yeah, some fuel storage, and use stable and use jugs that are airtight and store them in a safe location. So that way, if you fall below half a tank or you need a full tank of gas or whatever, you need more to get to your bug out location or just to get out of Dodge or whatever, that's good to have on you. And then one thing worth talking about, I'll just mention it here kind of briefly, and it kind of, the EV stuff, EVs, we're going to talk about electric vehicles. There's some crossover into the RV, the recreational vehicle space. There's some crossover into the prepared daily driver space. There's some crossover into, like, if it's your only vehicle space, though I probably wouldn't want it as my only vehicle. But if in a perfect world, if you could have like what I have, honestly, like a F450, and then I have a Tesla Model Y. So is a Model Y a great prepared daily driver? No, not really. But you know what would be pretty sick? A Cybertruck. So say what you will about Cybertrucks, or you could hate Elon or whatever. This isn't political. This isn't even about the styling of Cybertrucks, which is obviously controversial as well. But a Cybertruck, what you have with a Cybertruck is you have decent off-road capability, honestly. You got pretty good durability. You got some level of bullet resistance, not rifle caliber rounds, but some pistol caliber rounds, some bows. Apparently, Rogan shot a broadhead, I think, at a Cybertruck, and it basically didn't do anything. So, and the windows aren't bulletproof, but you have some bullet resistance in a Cybertruck. But an important aspect about electric vehicles that I talked about more in the part one of this with the e-bikes and golf cart and stuff is you can make your own fuel if you have solar panels and if you have a way to charge it. If you have a little mobile charger, almost any little power bank, any little Jackie or anything technically can charge an EV. Now, if you have a real small one and a real solar panel, it'll take weeks to charge, months maybe, to charge one of those things up. But technically, you can do it. You could add a few miles a day, and if you only drive once a week, that adds up, actually. Depending where you're trying to drive, what you're trying to do, all of the other stuff still comes into play about wanting to keep a relatively low signature in a grid down scenario. You don't want to be the only one driving your Cybertruck around when nobody else is driving. But EVs are quiet. EVs, you can charge yourself, you can refuel with the sun. EVs you can use as a power bank themselves. So unfortunately, the Model Y doesn't have this, but it's worth talking about in case you don't know much about EVs. They have some technologies. They have V2L, which stands for vehicle to load, which is basically you just use them as a big battery pack inverter. You use it as a big old EcoFlow or Anchor or Blue Eddy or Goal Zero or Jackery, except gigantic. So a lot of electric vehicles have vehicle to load. That means they have essentially 120 or 240 output. Sometimes they're only like 3,000 watts. Sometimes they're more. Then they have V2H, which is called vehicle to home. And then they have V2G, I think, vehicle to grid. So you can use these essentially as a big battery bank. My house has a grid down, 54 kilowatt battery, 54 kilowatt hour battery, and I got 10 kilowatts of solar on the roof. So not a huge system, like a pretty average size system. But even out of a Model Y, for instance, like my Model Y long range has 75 kilowatt hour battery pack, or like 78, I think. So it has a huge battery on board. By the way, if you'd like to buy a Cybertruck, use my referral link. I think you get $1,000 off of a Cybertruck and a few hundred off of a Model Y or something. I'll put the link down below. Please use mine because I want to buy acceleration boost from my Model Y. Quick little plug. And I'm trying to save up enough referrals to get it. So if you want to buy a Tesla, any kind, my link will save you. Again, I think it's like $1,000 off a Cybertruck or Model S or Model X, I think, as well. But anyway, so the things to note about EVs are not all EVs have vehicle to load, unfortunately. Quite a few of them don't. Quite a few of them do, so you just have to do your own research, what EV you're looking for, whatever. The brand new Model Y Performances just announced that they're going to have vehicle to load through an accessory through the mobile charger, which will give, I think, 3,600 watt at 120 volt output. So nothing crazy, but 3,600 watts is good. You could charge things, you could power things, you could do a lot off of that. I don't know if they're going to back trickle to... I've done some research. Apparently, like 2024 plus Model Ys were equipped with whatever that's needed in there to do the V2L. And then there's some third-party accessory that basically tricks the battery into opening up to accept a charge, but really then you can access the battery and pull a charge from it. So there's a third-party thing, I think. I should get it, but there's a third-party thing that lets you do it. But Tesla officially supports it on the new Model Y Performance, and the Cybertruck actually has a big one. I think Rivian's can't do it, but like a Hyundai Ioniq 5, I believe, has V2L. I think it's 3,600 watts. But anyway, what that does, again, allows you to charge it from the sun, so you can basically generate your own fuel. If you have enough solar and you have a battery, you can charge it and use it for storage capacity, and then you can pull energy from your battery. And even any EV uses a high voltage battery pack, like a 400 volt battery pack or something like that. And then it also has a 12 volt, like a normal 12 volt battery that handles a lot of the 12 volt electrical system. And the main big high voltage battery keeps charged with a DC-DC charger, the 12 volt. So most of them you can tap. It's just a regular battery that you can tap into. Maybe it's kind of hidden behind some plastic panels and whatnot. But assuming you have it, in Tesla it's called camp mode or dog mode, and that basically keeps the batteries connected. Then you can pull DC, 12 volt DC off of that battery, and your big battery continues to charge it. So even without dedicated V2L, you can still kind of through a hack access the main battery through the 12 volt battery. So you can run Anderson's or whatever off the 12 volt battery, keep the thing in camp mode, so it keeps the smaller 12 volt battery charged, and you have 12 volt. Granted, you can't pull crazy amps off that or anything, but you could, within reason, use that battery to charge other stuff or run a little portable inverter or whatever. Maybe you have a little jack where you can charge it from your Tesla or whatever EV you have. So worth talking about. I probably wouldn't have an EV as my only vehicle, like for a grid in the grid down scenario, but there is a very compelling argument for a Cybertruck being a very good option. So chew on that. And then longer term, grid down. So I have a couple of vehicles that, and again, this is unrelatable to some of you, but I know friends that have this with just two vehicles. Maybe you have two. My buddy Philip has two second-gen Toyota Tundras with the 5.7 V8, just because he likes the Tundras. His wife has one, he has one, just two vehicles. But just having those two vehicles be the same, you have redundancy of parts. If it's longer term or whatever, and the control arm goes bad, or something, your engine or transmission or whatever, something goes out, something goes wrong, you basically have an entire spare vehicle there for you. So if you can do something like that, that's awesome. Or if there's parts that will go out, you could get spares of them. But again, in a grid down scenario, you're going to be driving way less. You're not going to be driving all the time. So the chances of you needing to do like 6 more oil changes over the next, 6 years or whatever, probably pretty slim. But I always have oil and filters, and I do all my own stuff like that. And I have some common maintenance item parts that I'll usually have on hand, but that's not bad. And it's just to learn about your vehicles, maybe buy a repair manual for them, something like that. is not a bad idea, especially if you don't inherently know a ton, you're not that mechanically inclined. Having a repair manual on hand for your vehicle, so in case you do need to diagnose or fix something, you have that. And just being handy, learning to be picking it up as a hobby. I used to wrench on vehicles all the time. I still do more than I want to, and I don't like to anymore. I try not to, honestly, but I did a lot when I was younger, and again, still. But if you never have, that's fine. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, built, not bought, blah, blah, blah. Don't take it to a shop. I'm all about taking vehicles to shops. But you should know the basics of how a vehicle runs so you can diagnose some stuff that might go wrong. It's like I want to get a little bit into the bug out stuff in this video, like your grid down vehicle, how that will apply to bugging out, but I think I'm just going to save that all for the bug out versus bug in video that I'll hopefully have posted in a couple of weeks. So if you're into that and you're not subscribed, get subscribed and you'll see that video pop up. If you are a subscriber, hey, thanks for subscribing, and that video will be coming soon. So, but one aspect of it is it pertains more to vehicular related stuff is in terms of bugging out versus bugging in is if you are going to bug out, and I'll talk about it more in the video again, sorry, I've said that so many times, but you're probably not just going to drive out to the woods and try to survive. That's crazy talk. I'll talk more about it. But if you do have a location, I'll talk briefly in this video. So if you live in the city and maybe you have a weekend cabin or you have a family cabin or whatever, then awesome. You should start setting that up as a bug out location just for fun and just in case. If not, then maybe you have a friend or an acquaintance that has a property and you should start seriously talking to them about, hey, I'm not a paranoid psycho, but if things get kind of crazy, the world's kind of going a certain direction, like, can we make a plan? Can I go up there? Can I help you, maybe store some supplies up there, make a plan? Anyway, have a location that you can go. And I'll talk about it in this video as it pertains to your grid down vehicle, because a lot of people, especially in Colorado, a lot of people have campers. They have RVs or they have camper trailers, or maybe it's just a little pop-up trailer or whatever it is. They have recreational vehicles. So if you have your normal vehicle with your rooftop tent, that's cool. You don't want to live out of it long term, but maybe you could, you have a bed on the roof or whatever. So when you're heading out to your bug out location, depending on where that is, depending on what's there, you might need a bed. So it might not be a bad option to have a rooftop tent that, you could even sleep out of for a couple of weeks if it's a short-term thing, or indefinitely if it's a long-term thing. But if you have a trailer, if you have an RV, if you have even a small like camping trailer, a teardrop trailer, or like a cargo trailer, or even just a regular trailer, that might be something you would want to load up to get out of Dodge quickly and go to your friend's house, your family cabin, whatever, because you're going to want to take a lot of gear, especially if you can't store a lot of gear there. I have some friends, I'm building sort of again, we'll talk about this more in the other video, but I have kind of a core group of friends and then an extended group of friends, and like anybody, some friends are into some things and some friends are into, and I have friends for certain hobbies, and I have several different friend groups, and out of those friend groups, I have a closeness to some of them where sometimes a grid down scenario we'll talk about, and I talk with them about the plan. I will have more people coming to my house than who lives with me by default for a variety of reasons, for defense, for help, for it takes a village kind of thing to survive the apocalypse. So some of those friends have not enough of them, but some of them and some of my acquaintances have like an RV. Say you have a friend with an earth roamer, for instance. He could come to the bug out location and he could live out of his earth roamer. Solar panels on the roof. It's got bed. It's got, microwaves and cooktops and water and power on board. It's got everything. It's essentially a house on wheels. And this is what a lot of trailers are and whatnot. So if you have several people at your bug out location and you don't have enough room for them all to stay in one little house, if they brought a camping trailer or an RV, That would be huge. So if you have a camping trailer or an RV and you've never thought about it in that aspect as okay, I'm going to take that with me, will you be able to get it there if the roads are blocked and backed up? And it depends. It depends on where you live. It depends on what the scenario, there's a chance that you might not be able to. But if you are able to, then I would think of it in that aspect as well. Maybe you drive one of the regular vehicles and your wife drives a regular vehicle and you drive the RV or whatever it is. So that way, if you can make it, sweet. If not, then you pile into your other vehicle and go. But getting that vehicle kind of set up, maybe you never thought about solar panels and a battery array for that vehicle because you're like, I just run the generator. Maybe you should, invest in making it a little more grid down capable, if you will. So as it pertains to grid down vehicles, if you have an RV, then there's a lot to unpack there to make it more grid down capable, but maybe water filters and maybe get the thing dialed and maybe get an alternate heating source in there, a little mini wood burning stove or something like that, and maybe some solar panels and a battery array so you're not just relying on the generator. Things like that are great to think of when you're thinking about a grid down vehicle. And then combining it with my last video where I talked about bikes and e-bikes and whatnot, if you are traveling with that vehicle and you do have the room, then maybe you throw some e-bikes on the hitch carrier or whatever it is. So if you get to a place where you just cannot make it with your vehicle, you have a last-ditch effort to get it somewhere in your bike. Again, it feels clumsy to not unpack what that really means, like bugging out in this video, but there's so much to talk about that it really does deserve its own video. Just because we're talking about it, if you could just have people ask me this all the time, if I could just have one vehicle, and maybe as it pertains to the grid down, if I could just have one vehicle, what would it be for a grid down vehicle? And it would probably be a diesel 1-ton pickup truck, F-250, F-350. The F-450 that I have is kind of the ultimate truck, but the main downside of it is it's wide. So I don't live in a city. I'm not going to have to bug out of a city. So I have factored that into me having an F-450. I just wanted the biggest, baddest truck I could get, essentially. But an F-250 or an F-350 single rear wheel, if you don't need a dually, is going to be narrower. And there are scenarios, especially if you're suburbs or urban. If you're urban and you have a big truck, that sucks for you no matter what. But being narrower, there are scenarios where that will be better. Most scenarios, being narrower will be better. On trails, in urban, in suburban, being a little narrower will be better. So, and diesel lasts longer. Diesel, so it stores longer. Diesel vehicles, for apples to apples, usually gets better fuel economy. Diesel vehicles usually have bigger fuel tanks as well. And I'm not necessarily talking about like a Jetta, a TDI Golf or something like that, though. Not a horrible option. Diesel trucks. So if you get a gas truck versus a diesel truck, diesel has more maintenance. There's more things involved in a diesel. There's more things that could break potentially, but I think the pros outweigh the cons. So it's easier to store diesel. Diesel is safer. It's a less volatile fuel as well. So it's a safer fuel to store. And yeah, so this truck here, not the 450 doesn't get great fuel economy because gear ratio and weight and dually and whatnot, but it has a 48 or 49 gallon tank factory. That's the diesel tank size. It's huge. These trucks get like 700, like a factory, an OEM F-250. I don't know. I haven't looked up the numbers for it, but they probably get like 600 miles of range, just factory truck on a full tank. So that's one huge advantage. And a lot of times they have big payloads. Now a diesel F-250 technically has slightly less payload than a gas F-250 because the diesel engine is heavier. But I would probably go for a diesel F-250 or F-350 or whatever, if you're a Ram or a Chevy guy, then the equivalent trucks in that. Or an F-150 or a Tundra would be good too. You can't get those, well, maybe the Eco Diesels in some of the 150, 1500 trucks, but it would probably be a full-size truck. It has good cab room. Typically, they have good range. They have decent payload. They can tow if you have a trailer and you need to tow. They typically have bigger truck beds. So if you're getting out of Dodge, or if you're getting supplies, or if you're helping someone pack up real quick and get to wherever, a truck is the way to go. So a truck, yeah, maybe a Ford Excursion, Toyota Sequoia, not a bad option, but something that can carry stuff. And for me, if it was one vehicle, it would be a diesel HD truck, single rear wheel, probably. So yeah. And then finally, what is all this for? What is the point of all this? Is it just fun? We just like tactical Timmy with our trucks? Kind of, yeah, because it is fun, honestly. But a lot of it is to get you thinking. And it's not necessarily to just get you thinking about the vehicle you're going to buy or how you're going to build your vehicle or what. You're thinking about the scenarios. You look at things in a different light when you kind of have this mindset. Like when I first got into concealed carrying, I was into guns for a while before I got into concealed carry and before I got into really learning, training, self-defense scenarios, stuff like that. And the transition from how you look at the world before you were a concealed carrier, hopefully, to when you look at the world after you're a concealed carrier is different. Where you're going to sit in a restaurant is different. How you're looking for exits is different. How you're just looking, where you're parking in parking lots, and just like your whole awareness to all this stuff changes in the concealed carrier mode. So you can take that kind of same logic and your whole mindset and how you visualize things and look at things is different once you start thinking in a preparedness mindset and not paranoid. I don't carry a gun because I'm paranoid. I don't build out crazy trucks because I'm paranoid. None of this has to do anything with paranoid or scared. I don't remember the last time I've been scared. Like fear isn't a thing, not because I'm some macho man. It's just because I have the tools and the knowledge and the skills to handle most scenarios that I feel like I'm going to be in. And because of that, I'm not really scared of things, I guess. So there's no paranoid or scared aspect of any of this stuff. And it's annoying when people say that kind of stuff, but you start thinking of it with a different mindset. What does that mean, or how does it play out, I guess, as it pertains to grid down vehicle travel? And I talked a little bit about this again in the previous video where I talked about bikes and whatnot and how you're going to get home from the office, things like that. But to reiterate some of that, you think about your commute to work. You think, okay, if the main highway gets shut down, do I know back roads to get there? Do I know where I'm going to be blocked in by concrete barriers and medians on both sides, and if I go that way, I may get stuck and not be able to get out? Do you know what neighborhoods you could cut through? Do you know what gas stations you might be able to hit? Do you know, is it something you stop at all the time? Do you know the attendant? Do you know things like that? Do you have a real good understanding of, if you don't have GPS and the highway is just, you can't go on it, are you going to be able to make it home? Do you know if you go through a neighborhood and we can drive through all of those front yards without a problem? Like things like that, you'll think about, or you'll envision just differently. Maybe you'll just be like, I'm going to take the long way home from work, or I'm going to go out to dinner and I'm going to take a different route to get there, just to kind of understand my area, to know what's around, to have a good idea of, of the few mile radius of my house, what's around, what resources can I gain access to. I'm sharing this stuff with you because if you're watching this, you're probably a follower. This video is not going to go viral, so I'm not giving this information out to crazy people, hopefully. But is there fuel stations for government vehicles, or are there, front end loaders or excavators or bobcats, skid steers on the side of the road that someone's, doing road construction with? Are those vehicles going to be assets for you? And there's grid down vehicles. Are you going to be able to safely borrow and store those vehicles from the government if you need to? I'm not talking about going and stealing tanks or anything like that. Though, if you got one that you can get access to, sweet. But just a part of the exercise, a part of what I like to think about is I know what's around me. I know where I will go and maybe try to get some stuff if I really need to, if it comes down to that. I try to be cognizant of construction equipment that's around me. I'm working on roads near me or whatever that is, things that will be assets to me in the end of the world. And again, this is kind of getting into like, well, you're sounding kind of crazy, Mike, and I get that. But it's part of those things like before you concealed carry and you're just like oblivious to it, and you told someone like, oh yeah, when I go out to eat, I like to sit with my back against the wall and facing the entrance of the restaurant. So I just kind of am aware. I know what's going on. If some crazy person comes up, right, I can see things. For someone that's so clueless and like has no awareness of situational awareness or anything like that, if you said something like that to them, then they might be like, man, you're paranoid. And I kind of get how that could come off. So how I'm talking now, if you've never thought in that light before, I get how I could be coming off as paranoid. But I'm like, I'm not paranoid. I'm just, everything is good. But it's nice to know what is around. And then as part of that, you might see neighbors or people around that, have a cool truck or whatever. And you're like, oh yeah, I should maybe try to make friends with them or whatever. There's a neighborhood barbecue or whatever it is. Like there may be opportunities that you find new friends or connections or assets, or at the very minimum, you know how to get home from work at a different path. So yeah, I think those are some of the important things. Some are vehicle building things. Some are you already have the vehicle, but you might not have the awareness of your surroundings, your neighborhood, stuff like that. And then thinking about other assets. I think about that stuff all the time. There are other things I think about. Well, I guess we could talk about it in this video. So in bugging out versus bugging in, I'll probably talk about it more in that video if I remember. But if you're trying to just book it out of the city and you're just trying to go to the mountains, everyone's thinking the same thing. And let me tell you right now, the mountain folk are thinking the same thing as well. We don't want them city folk coming up into the mountains, right? You will be hit with resistance. So don't come up like without a plan. Don't come up thinking you just will roll into some kind-hearted person's farm and they'll just take you in with open arms. Ain't none of that stuff gonna be happening. So when you're thinking about getting out of Dodge, just don't be naive about it. There will probably be roadblocks as well. And I'll get more into this in the bug out versus bug in. But if you're gonna bug out, and again, if you have a cabin, if you have a friend, maybe you're not gonna watch my other bug out video, and I just wanna get you this information now. If it is a national, or even if it's a relatively localized thing, but it's bad, but especially if it's a national thing, if cell phones go out, if power goes out and you don't know what's going on. So bugging out. You want to do it quick. So as part of this whole exercise, again, this will be kind of in the series of videos that I'm doing over the next couple of months. You want to have somewhat of a plan, somewhat of a gear set, like whether that's an expanded bug out bag, go bag type stuff, but it really won't be a bag. It'll be in bins or boxes or giant duffel bags or whatever. Either you have that stuff ready to go, which is unrealistic for some people, or you have at least a checklist written down of things I need to grab if I'm gonna go stay at Uncle Ben's house in the mountains for an indefinite period of time, and I didn't prepare ahead of time. Get that dialed, because you do not want to wait around for more than a day or two. On the third day, you probably won't be able to make it to where you're trying to go. There will be roadblocks, there will be congestion, there will be accidents, there will be I have a buddy that was working for the government, having to go into New Orleans when all that happened, having to go get some people out, some NASA scientists. And he was telling me about just not even government there might be government roadblocks, probably not, but just about the civilian roadblocks and just just people taking pop shots at helicopters. Like, it got wild, and that was a localized event. So a national event, a grid down scenario, you want to get out quick. You want to get out while you can. The first day would be ideal. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to get out. So not to freak you out, not to make you paranoid, but just something to think about. Well, I think that's it. If you have anything else to add, I'd love to hear from you. I say it all the time. My subscribers are the most dialed. Like if I had to have a challenge of my subscribers versus any other channel subscriber, I think mine would win. So I learned a lot from you guys. So if you have more to add, maybe I didn't think of it. Maybe I just forgot to say it. Maybe I didn't know about it. Feel free to chime in the comments below. If you like this content, let me know. I like to hear it. If you want more of this type of content for other stuff, let me know, and I probably am into it. So I love hearing from you. It helps the algorithm, all that stuff, getting subscribed, sharing this video with other people, saving it, liking it, all that YouTube crap that nobody likes to hear. I appreciate it. As always, I put links to stuff down in the video descriptions. I always appreciate you clicking those links and shopping through them, because that's how I make a buck as well. And yeah, well, until next time, guys, take care.